Well, for all of you indies out there, our next presenter is going to help you learn how to make tons of money, sell out, and then not be an indie anymore, right? Welcome to the stage, Admiral Bob Meese.
Thank you, Colt, and I'm not Admiral. All right, so welcome everybody. Thanks for joining for the continuation of the Google Developer Day today. I'm here to talk about making money on Google Play. So this will be, I'm the token business guy on the day. And this is actually based on a presentation that myself and a colleague of mine, Brahim, did at Google I/O last year. And so this is different enough where if you want to check that one out for, to see what that was about, you can find it on YouTube, also called Making Money on Google Play. So a quick agenda here. So just quickly going to introduce the Play Games BD team. Talk about some of the drivers of the revenue growth that we're seeing on Google Play and mobile in general. Talking about some developer success stories, and so covering a variety of different developers from the indies to the big guys, spending time across the full spectrum, and then going into a bit of a play update on Commerce International. All right, so our team, we are growing. And so the 6 of us on the top are based in the Bay Area. We're growing quickly. Jamil, on your upper right, started yesterday. John next to him started last week, so we're growing. And then all the folks on the bottom are our international colleagues, so covering Japan, Korea, and London. And so this is our team. So we appreciate with you guys, like we love getting to meet all you guys. We're still quite small. For the size of Google Play. As you'll see some of the stats, they're definitely impressive, but we want to be engaging with more and more of you guys. And so we're going to keep growing and just kind of bear with us as we adjust the size of our team to suit all of you guys. And one last shout out too, I had to do this, but this is my son Isaac. He's turning 2 today, so biggest thing. He's a gamer, he likes racing games, so this is Isaac. See him on YouTube or whatnot. Cool. Thanks for that. That was cool. So in terms of the drivers of the revenue that's happening right now, I mean, this is well reported, but the top developers are definitely breaking out at the top. And I'm not going to talk the whole talk about these guys, obviously, because the market is much broader. But you got to address these guys because what they're doing is really outstanding. The breakout success that we're seeing at the platform level is certainly driven in large part by these guys. And so you look at Gung, 2012 to 2013. This is all publicly reported. These are, they're a publicly traded company. You can find this elsewhere, but it's really notable to say, more than 6x growth year on year from Gung. It's really just an astounding year that they had, and they're driving the overall growth in the mobile games business. They actually did an interesting thing as well too, where during the last quarter they actually broke out that $1.6 billion, and it looks pretty favorable for us actually. Where Google Play is a big deal worldwide, but especially in Japan as well. And so, we're seeing the leading developers like Gung really doing great things for us and for the ecosystem as a whole. Moving on to King, not that 6x was anything to shout about, but more than 11x growth year on year. These guys just recently filed to IPO, and so this information was contained there. They didn't actually break out the individual platforms in the composition there. They did actually break out the mobile piece. And so they went on the mobile side. Mobile was 10% of the revenue in 2012, and last year it was 70%. And so you can really see just the growth overall that's happening in mobile. It's driving some really big numbers at the top of the market. And finally in this set, Supercell. So for them, more than 8x growth year on year. And so you're seeing just some really dramatic and fantastic growth here. At the top end of the market with these leading developers. Supercell, as many folks know, just came to Google Play in about the last 6 months, and so they didn't break out by platform, but they're really notable for driving the top of the market here. But as I said, there's definitely many different categories of successful developers, and here you have these breakout successes, the 3 companies that I just talked about, but the market for mobile and for Google Play is much broader than just that. And so there's large developers like Gameloft, and like EA that are very, very important developers for us. There's a number of new developers as well too, and so the 3 developers that I have here, Good Game Studios, Pixelberry, and SpaceApe, none of them were on Google Play last year at this time. So it is really important for us to have a very healthy ecosystem overall, and so it's really important to recognize the good work that's being done by the new developers. And then finally on the right here, the small developers. So both of these teams are really gracious, but kind of the fact remains that in both of these cases, 2 people is doing the majority of work for these developers. And so it's interesting and exciting to see that still remains a true thing within mobile. Is in some cases Mediocre, they just launched a game a couple weeks ago and it's done quite well. So we can talk a little bit more about that. And it's interesting to note too that just the tactics change, right? So King, just another thing that they disclosed was last year they spent more than $300 million on mobile user acquisition. The guys on the right are spending 0. And so it's a really interesting environment right now in terms of the different tactics that you can take to success on mobile and Google Play. So cool. So let's move on to talk a little bit more about the 10 developers. So for the first 3, not going to spend much more time there. But the important thing to note is around focus. And so all 3 developers in this case, they're not getting their revenue from a vast number of games. So Puzzle & Dragons is driving more than 90% of the revenue for Gung Ho last year. And so just that one-hit game, just the focus of just making that an amazing experience is really driving their success. In the case of King, more than 80% of the revenue for mobile and nearly 80% of the revenue for the whole business was driven by Candy Crush Saga in the 4th quarter. And so there's a lot of power in having that hit game. And in the case of Supercell, they didn't break it out in terms of the competition between their 2 games, but virtually all the revenue, they have a 3rd one coming, but virtually all the revenue is coming from just 2 games. And so that's clearly something we're seeing as a best practice. There was a time when developers were launching a bunch of games, but what we're seeing right now, just the message to take from the folks leading the top. I mean, they're doing some amazing things, but focus is clearly what's a big part of what's winning for these guys. In terms of the larger developers, one of the trends that we're seeing is they're adapting to free-to-play. They're amazing game developers, but it's free-to-play is definitely an art. There's a lot of folks out there that love free-to-play games. There's other folks there that feel passionately the other way, and so it's something where you definitely need to make sure that you're doing it well and you're doing it right. And so to talk a little bit more about Gameloft, so they did a really interesting experiment last year where we worked very closely with them for Asphalt 8. They actually launched that game in August of last year as a premium game with in-app purchase. But they had an explicit experiment, which was very cool, to see how much money they could make through in-app purchase, and could they make that game free to play? And so there, they gave themselves a couple of months to develop the in-app economy there, and they found that now the game is free to play. But the testing that they did before that, in the month up to when they pushed it free to play, they were making nearly 30 to 3/4 of their revenue through in-app purchase, which is really powerful. And where they came out, so it went free in November of last year, they actually increased their revenue by going free to play because they had built up the in-app economy, and then they did 24x their installs in the 30 days post the switch versus pre. So it just really speaks to revenue's a piece, but just the engagement that they benefit from doing this is massive. And so it was certainly a success for them, and it feels like Gameloft is definitely developing their chops in terms of being a great free-to-play developer. Next big company is Electronic Arts. So there, Simpsons has clearly been the big win for them. So in terms of just focus and learning from those largest developers, Simpsons has clearly been the breakout success for EA. It's been hanging around the top 10, top grossing for a year plus, and so that's just a really impressive accomplishment. When we think about EA, just great brands are just a core part of the company, and so we're really excited to be working more closely with EA to bring, all of these brands are there right now. They continue to invest in all of them. The Simpsons, they're just doing great things. We're just, the storytellers, if you guys are playing that game, you know what I mean. But if you haven't, just, the writers from The Simpsons are actually writing the game as well, too, and they're having a ton of fun. And so it's quite a fun game. And there, just EA's commitment to free-to-play, where we're not going to come up here and say everybody has to go free-to-play, and we'll definitely cover that later. But if you want to compete with Gung Ho and Supercell and King, that's been the dominant model to get that level of success. And so that's what EA is shooting for in mobile. So the new developers, so Good Game, Pixelberry, and SpaceSafe, just to talk about them quickly. So as I said earlier, none of these guys had a game on Google Play this time last year, or even kind of the middle of last year. And all have caught our attention. So I want these guys are the guys to learn from. For me, one of the important goals of this talk is just the other developers that are kind of noteworthy to us or catch our attention. That's how I want to highlight these guys. These are guys who, they've done very interesting things that we think are notable, and we want to hold up for you guys. And so Empire 4 Kingdoms from Good Game, it just launched on Play middle of last year. It's an interesting company because they're a bit bigger than Pixelberry and SpaceApe. These guys, it was two brothers that they founded the company several years ago, and they were big on online free-to-play, but they just came to mobile last year. But after that time, and honestly, we're just getting to know these guys a little bit. I mean, we've met with them, but they're based in Hamburg, and so we see them a little less often than some of the folks that are based here. But it's really a steady rise in top grossing, reaching the top 10 top grossing most recently, and so they're doing a lot of things right. And so please there's limited time today to go into all the mechanics of the games, but just for those of you who are looking at what's working, we think that Good Game is a really good example. So a slightly different demographic with Pixelberry here with I pick Truth, I pick Dare, I pick Just Making Out. So I don't know if this is everybody's game in the place, but they've done some amazing things. So they were just started in the middle of 2012 and just launched on Play just a few months ago. But one thing that's really interesting about them and really differentiated is passion about story, and not just saying that, but if you look at the employees of the company, a full half of the people at Pixelberry are actually writers. And so when you think about it, that's just a huge commitment to doing that. And then you look at the day one retention number, and clearly it's paying off for them. I mean, 71% is massive. And so these guys they've taken a very story-driven approach to the business, and it's working for them. And one thing too is just on the bottom left there. Cyberbullying is something where I spoke to Oliver, the founder, and he was saying, I wanted to know how he got into cyberbullying, because they're doing some really cool things with CyberSmile, which is a cyberbullying charity. And he said, we had started the game and we were doing this thing, and he was reading more and more about cyberbullying, and he said, we have this amazing platform with High School Story to do something about it. And so it's actually really cool that they have CyberSmile inspired quests, and they've had more than 2 million people go through them. And they also have a bunch of different player donations, as well as they've actually had people who are cyberbullying or even suicidal situations that they've been able to help. So for here, it's that they're building a business, but it's really inspiring for us that we're seeing them do so much good as well. And then SpaceApe, so new developer, launched Siege in the fourth quarter of last year, recently formed as well, just a really talented team. So these guys really stand out. So a bunch of ex-Playfish and Mind Candy folks based in London, and so they're just really smart and really analytical about how they run their business, and that's been quite fun to see. And so that for them, it was just how they thought about their first game was just get it out there, be fast. They have more in the pipeline that they're really excited about as well too. But you look at the headline here, and events is a well-known structure for just improving a variety of metrics within your game. There's definitely a fair amount of investment that's required to do that, but it can work for a lot of folks. And so events are an area where SpaceApe has really chosen to invest and to try to differentiate itself. And so they have a variety of different tournaments that we lay out here, and you can look at the relative impact there. And so the top one is what they call a personal tournament, or how they describe it is it's March Madness right now, so kind of an NCAA bracket for events within the game, where it's single player, so not having to join an alliance, multi-round, and it's at the end of that you have one single winner through that personal tournament. In the second one, where you have the War Rush, so that's just a compression of the existing alliance wars, but rather than 12 hours, you move it down to 3 hours, and you get a lot of good things in terms of just the engagement in the game during that time. But as you can imagine, that might be a little tiring as well too. So they're iterating on a bunch of different event structures, and as you can see here, they're measuring what was the effort level required to support that, what did it do to our metrics in terms of retention, engagement, monetization. And then onto the small developer category. So as I mentioned earlier, some really standout folks with Vector Unit and with Mediocre, where it's largely for both of these companies about 2 people, which is really quite amazing. And the point here is that there's a bunch of rules where for the large developers, if you're looking to raise money, build a business, you have kind of a different set of things, and I think for the large developers, it's more important to follow best practices, or it can be you're a bit more constrained. With these guys, if you have a cost structure of 2 people, you can kind of do whatever you want, and these guys are showing that. So for Vector, with Riptide GP2, they've stayed a premium game, and they is 2 people, have done a great job with that. As I mentioned earlier, so no paid advertising. So they do an amazing job engaging with their community. So they were doing a lot of work in terms of getting early APKs out to developers and reviewers, doing a bunch of social media, doing a bunch of cross promo in several of their existing games, and for them just taking a very sort of throwback approach and just not doing paid user acquisition. And for them too, they work very closely with us, where they actually were a part of our keynote last year at the Google I/O show, where we presented some of the multiplayer earlier. They were basically the reference game for that. So these guys are super easy to work with. And one demonstration of that is like, hey, you guys mind if I'm gonna talk about you guys at GDC? And they're like, yeah, sure, here's all our revenue for the game. And so these guys are like super open. You can't quite do this with like the bigger guys, but this is what the game did, right? So this is their Google Play revenue. And so here, like you can see when you have that premium style, though, you are going to spike early. And even though they do have in-app purchase in the game, it does taper off after that initial purchase cycle is through. But for them, they're driving a quarter of the revenue through in-app purchase of the game. And for them, whenever you have, the message here is, this is a success. It's clearly success for Vector, right? If you're a larger company, this is a more challenging thing. But for smaller developers, it's really important that we have diversity in the ecosystem, and you have developers that are making amazing games of this quality, and you can have a different product out there. There's a bunch of premium gamers still on Google Play, even though that in-app purchase is the dominant way that revenue is generated. And so these guys are a great example of somebody who's having success doing that. Then more recently, so some guys at Mediocre, based out of Sweden, that we've known for the last several years. So interesting game with Smash Hit. It's blowing up right now. If you guys haven't seen it, it launched in the last couple of weeks. But they have an interesting model where it's free with level unlocks, right? And so it's pretty basic monetization in some ways, but it's not something where you're going to have players pay you over and over again. I asked these guys the other day. I said, is it possible for me to pay you more than $2 for this game? And they said no, right? And so there's a lot of developers that aren't willing to make that trade-off, but these guys have. And so some of the changes that they've made from their previous games, so the example of Sprinkle, previously they had separate APKs for a free and a premium game, but it's a bit of an awkward experience. And so in this case, for Smash Hit, they've actually condensed that into a single APK. And so it starts free, and then you have a premium unlock, which is a really nice way to do things. In there, in terms of the approach that they take, so just really highly polished games. So getting folks, it doesn't hurt that I'm talking about it now, but I think they have a lot of just folks who are just passing the game to their friends, showing it to their friends, really focusing on that sort of word of mouth is their approach to getting the word out. And again, too, they have other games that they can cross-promo. They did some PR, but again, no ads, so it is possible to go that route. In terms of monetization results, so in terms of the monetization, as I mentioned, the game it's a free game with a premium unlock. And so there, you play through and they say, hey, you have these checkpoints. It's basically a way to save your progress across the various levels of the game. And so you play through, rather than having to start over all the way at the beginning, you can save your progress at a bunch of intermediate points. There's really clear user value that's created in doing that. It's relatively simple, but it's also very effective. In terms of the early results, that's kind of remarkable. It's under 2 weeks. I've just been refreshing my phone, but they actually hit #1 on top free on Google Play yesterday. It's pretty amazing that 2 guys can do that. And as I said, the monetization is basic, and I don't know if it'll exactly follow the Riptide GP2 curve, but these guys will likely spike early in terms of their monetization, just because folks like myself, as much as I would like to pay them more than $2 for the game, I can't, right? And so, but they have hit top 100 top grossing right now too. So I mean, they are making good money on the game. So it's just that was a quick recap of a lot of the developers that we think are doing really exceptional things for their businesses, for Google Play, and should be role models for a lot of the folks in the ecosystem. So just a quick update on our side in terms of some of the things we hear. So I mean, I know all you guys talk to each other, but in terms of like, there's some themes that I just wanted to share with you guys in terms of what we hear, right? And so, some of the developers will come to us and say, here's all our metrics, here's Google Play where I think you guys could do better. And so I don't know if you guys have a sense of, what do developers say we need to work on at Google Play? You guys know? So the answer is conversion. And so they're like, it's one of the things we hear most often, where we have great engagement, our players, like we have a ton of engagement on Google Play. Like the payers who are done that, like they're spending a bunch of money in the game, but it's the conversion piece where we'd really like to see you guys, Google, work on helping us convert more of our players into payers. And so that's something where we hear that, and so how do we want to do it, right? So we've had direct carrier billing programs that have been in place for a number of years. Gift cards have started to roll out more recently, but are really catching momentum, and we're expanding that more broadly. Supporting other forms of payment, I mean, we're exploring a variety of different options, and even for credit card too. One of the things we're focused on is just enabling more and more people to be payment ready, to have their credit card on file with Google and with Google Play. And so how are we planning to do this? And of course the answer to this one is all of the above, right? So we're pursuing all of these things in parallel. And so payments is one of the big themes for us too. So all of the great work that the developers are doing to make money on the platform, a big focus for us right now. In some ways, it's not sexy, but it's really important. Where if you have that player who has found your game, installed your game, is playing your game, loves your game, wants to pay for it, and just gets caught at that part of the process, that really just feels like it's something that shouldn't happen. And so it's something that we're spending a lot of time focusing on ourselves. And so I'll cover a couple of things there. So in terms of international, so Google Play is strong worldwide, but there's a variety of markets on the left that are some of the largest markets for us, and on the right, some of the fastest growing. It's just a remarkable platform for us as we travel more parts of the world, and we just see the growth of Android and the growth of Google Play. It's just remarkable and humbling. And from a payments perspective, though, supporting payments well in all of these places is not simple, and so it's something that it's definitely taking some time to work on. But for us, this is available online as well too. But just kind of presenting it here, I think, is important. The direct carrier billing side there's a variety of markets like Japan, like Korea, like the United States, where we have direct carrier billing deals with all of the major carriers in those markets. And so that's those three countries are some of our largest for sure. And we believe that definitely a contributing reason to that is the strength of the payments options that are available in those markets. And we continue. I mean, this list. Every week or every couple of weeks, like this list is getting longer and longer. This is definitely an area where, in some markets in particular, where direct carrier billing is a big focal point for consumers, it's something we're adding. And similarly for gift cards. So for gift cards, it's something there are fewer countries that are supported. So as I mentioned, for direct carrier billing, there's more than 20 countries. For gift cards, it's 7 at the moment. But there are some of the most recent countries that we've enabled with gift cards have been Germany in the middle part of last year, and saw a nice bump there, and then most recently Japan just in December. And so we had a market as strong as Japan with the numbers that you saw for Puzzle and Dragons, and there all of 2013 we had gift cards for all of the last couple of weeks of that year, right? And so as we add more and more forms of payment, it enables just an overall better ecosystem across the way too. And so, on the left is the countries, on the right is just a sampling of the U.S., an example of a country where we have the best coverage of gift cards. We're based here, but a variety of retailers there. So you'll start seeing that more and more. We're supporting Google Play branding with above-the-line TV campaigns, and you'll see the Google Play gift cards in more and more retailers. So that's about it for me. So I just wanted to say thank you from all of us on the Play Games BD team, and yeah, find me after.